Hello and welcome back to Widowed AF. You're here with Rosie Gilmoss, and joining me today is Erica, and I'm going to try very hard to do your surname properly. Ferreira? Is that close enough?
Yeah, that's close enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're very forgiving. So welcome, Erica. Now, Erica and I are in the same club in more than one sense, in that we're both widows, obviously, and also we're both members of Way. So we have probably seen each other pop up on posts and things over the last few years. And it's very nice to see you on the screen and welcome you onto the podcast. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, no, thank you for having me and giving the opportunity to tell my story.
You're very welcome. And that's an accent that we can detect, isn't it? Whereabouts are you from?
I am Brazilian. I came to the UK when I was 19 years old. And I have been here ever since.
So this is obviously going to be a factor in sort of support following becoming a widow, which inevitably you will tell us about. So I will stop trying to jump the gun. And really, if you're happy to do so, tell us your story. Tell us what brought you here.
Right. What brought me here, obviously, the same club as you. Julian passed away from leukemia in 2020, November 2020, after very short
COVID time.
Yeah, COVID time. There was a lot of aggravating factors in our grieving experience. And he became sick around October 2019 and it progressed very quickly from there. It started with headaches and he started complaining he was more and more unwell. And I suspect there was something seriously wrong with him. Even though he's been to the doctor a couple of times, they just kept fobbing him off, sending him back home. And I put two and two together. I thought, you have leukemia. And I couldn't say it because it comes to a point where if you say it, then it becomes real. So I didn't want to scare him because his dad passed away of cancer as well.
Yeah, of course.
So he had all that background. But, eventually we had an argument. And I said, you need to ask the doctor to give you a blood test. We need to get to the bottom of this, And he was lucky because he went to the GP practice. There was a new doctor that day. And he did a simple blood test. And straight away he said, you need to get your bags, go to the hospital now.
Wow.
Right. So that was on a Monday. So he went to the hospital. He was walking. He came home. He prepared his rucksack. I was working. I had just gone back to working full time because I had taken a career break when my daughter was little. He was in intensive care the same week on a Friday. And that was before Christmas. I had to call my family in Brazil and say I was in hospital when I called. I said, Julian is in intensive care. I don't think he's going to make it because he couldn't.
Oh, my God.
He was close to being intubated that day. He couldn't. I could tell he didn't know what was happening. He couldn't recognize us.
And this has all happened so quickly just from you suspecting there was something wrong.
To be honest, it took, I think, about four weeks between going back and forth to the doctor. I remember calling a friend who is a doctor in desperation. I said, there's something seriously wrong. But by then I knew he had leukemia.
I'm going to just interject. I have written it down as a question to ask you later, but how did you know? Because I wouldn't know that. Do you have a medical background or experience?
I am a bit of a geek. So I'm forever reading. I used to read a lot of medical magazines, but, you Google, and he said two things. He had every symptom. He was textbook case. And he said, many years ago, my blood test came with low white blood cells. And I thought, well, this is telltale leukemia. But I became very angry with the doctors over this, but I'll skip that bit. So going back, this, if you think I was working full time with two small kids, Lottie was 3 years old, Luca was 6, and I have no family in the UK. So literally, I called the hospital when they told me he's in intensive care. Everything happened in 5 days. And I said, can I bring my son so he can say goodbye? So I got my son and I said, Dad is not well. He's very poorly. I'd like you to see him. But, obviously, I didn't tell. This is probably going to be the last time that you're going to see your dad. When the nurse didn't want us to go, in with a small child, because intensive care normally don't allow children. But I said, look, he may never see his father again. I need him to do this. I need them to have a goodbye. When Luca walked in, Julian had this mask. He looked a bit like an astronaut. And Julian just started crying. He started crying. When he saw Luca, he started hyperventilated, even though I don't think he knew what was happening, but he could recognize his son. And eventually the nurse,
isn't it?
It was very difficult. And if you think a voice contained my emotions quite a lot, I thought, if he's crying, I'm going to scare my son. I didn't want him to get even more terrified than he probably was. But anyway, the doctors, he managed to pull through, right? He managed to recover. And they did lots of blood transfusions, and eventually he came out of intensive care Christmas Day.
On Christmas Day?
Yeah, by then, Rosie, my sister had, I think, a week's holiday, and she flew from Brazil, and she got here 2 days later. She said she has nobody, she's all there by herself. So I'm becoming emotional just relieving all these.
That's what a wonderful thing to do. What's your sister's name?
Amanda.
So thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, I mean, she was amazing. This was still pre-COVID, and I had to call my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law flew immediately as well, and that was very hard because she was super emotional. Everybody's in the house. We've got the 2 kids, and there's a photograph of Luca basically sitting on Julian's bed and smiling. I'm like, this child has no idea how serious this situation is. And then what happened, he came out. I remember I cooked Christmas lunch. I took 2 lunches, one for him, one for the nurse, because I was just so thankful. I said, you are away from your family, looking after my husband, and that means a lot to me.
That's a very lovely gesture.
I think, it doesn't really cover what the nurses do for the patients, because Julian was very weak. He needed to be washed, and they did with such a care and devotion.
There really are some good ones, aren't there?
There are some amazing ones. I'm forever thankful. I'm sort of bracing myself to go back to the ward and bring some gifts and just to be thankful for what they did. I always say, you didn't give me Julian back, but you gave me hope, and it gave me time to be with him and prepare for what was to come. Julian had a very, very aggressive type of leukemia. The nerdy that I am, I read every single scientific newspaper I could get my hands off to understand his cancer, because I wanted to go to hospital armed with information. I found doctors are very good, but sometimes they don't own all the answers. And they did 2 lots of chemo. So eventually Julian lost his hair. He was totally bald. He was extremely sick. And in all that, I was working full time. I would go to work in the morning very early. The only person in my job that knew he was sick was my boss.
Wow, so you kept it from everybody.
I kept it secret.
Oh my goodness. What do you do for a living? Can I ask you that, or is it too personal? I mean, I'm asking about your freedom.
No, absolutely not. You can ask. Now I have a different job. I work for the council. I'm a fire safety officer. So I look after all the fire safety in the buildings. But before, I was a health and safety advisor for a small charity. And it sounds strange. Sometimes I look back and it's like, why I didn't tell anybody. I told my boss she was a widow herself at 40. She had 2 young girls. Our stories were very similar. her girls was the same age as my children when she became widowed. And she was very understanding. But I said to her, I don't want anybody else to know. The reason at the time was that I wanted a bit of normality out of all the craziness. I knew if I came in the morning and people asked me, how are you doing? That probably would have been enough to burst into tears. And Rosie, I knew Julian was going to die. As soon as I learned what he had, I thought, okay, I need to hang on to this job. I need to, when I'm here, I need to just be the professional, put my personal life and my grievances in a box and crack on with the job, because one day I'll be a single mom and I'll have to look after these kids. But, it was a bit surreal, because I would finish work and I would drive an hour to the hospital almost every day. And nobody knew anything. We kept off social media as well. Julian was very, very private. I particularly didn't want to expose ourselves to people wanting just the gossip and not being useful. Right?
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I think you've been through, I think you said some podcasts as well before. That you have the experience that people want a piece of you.
Grief tourism, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I was spreading myself very thin already, driving to Brighton. I had family here by then, my mother-in-law. But the added complication is nobody spoke English. So I didn't have that benefit of saying, look, I can't handle this. Can you please talk to the doctor, or can you sit with me? And I speak French, but my French is good. I'll defend myself in French, but I'm not fluent.
Yeah. And Julian was French, right?
He was French. There were times, a lot of the times he was well enough to explain to his mom, but sometimes I would have to explain myself what was happening. And
it's just another thing to have to do, though, isn't it?
Well, it's
and
just
all of this.
Yeah, another layer. And I keep my emotions in check. I thought, if there's anybody that cannot fall and has to be strong, has to be me. Where my mother-in-law was in pieces, I found that hard to have to juggle her. I almost have to manage her emotions for herself. But anyway, going back to Julian, he had lots of chemo. The doctors called me and they delivered the news. The chemo is not really working. And this is very disappointing news, because he should be responding to this chemo. But I knew from the type of leukemia that he had that there was a good chance that wasn't going to work. And
did you share this knowledge with him at the time? Did you talk quite openly about the research that you've been doing? You did. I just wondered whether he was open to it, or whether he sort of didn't want to know, because some people do prefer not to know, don't they?
I mean, Rose, well, there was a time, I think he felt at times that I was trying to play the doctor, and I knew better than the doctors. And we had one of the funniest arguments that the nurses left the room when they suspect he had a blood clot and they wanted to do MRI, and he absolutely refused, which was so out of character. But was him trying to control the situation? He said, I'm not having it. I know my legs. I just need a massage. Rosie, I almost fell out of my chair. I'm like, you're seriously ill. Clots are one of the main problems with your type of cancer. They're offering you MRI for free, right? And you don't want to do it? Oh,
just a massage.
Just a massage will resolve. I said, I just turned my back. I said, I'm not talking to you until you have this MRI. At that moment, the nurses were opening the door. They felt the situation. They walked straight out. And then
How heated was this row?
Well, no, it wasn't very heated.
It's the Latin blood, isn't it?
I have a face. My face just transforms,
I think we all have one of those faces.
I know, but I'm super easy to read, and it's obviously my Latin, temper just coming out. And I just turned my back, and he tried to talk to me, and I was just not having it. and just not having it.
It's not uncommon to hear of people having rows with their spouses whilst they're in intensive care or in hospices even.
Because you just feel so angry. So I was fighting for his life.
Yes.
You know, behind the scenes, I was fighting for his life and he didn't want it. But anyway, he said, okay, just go and call the nurses. I called the nurses. And they sheepishly just came with the wheelchair and whisking away. And
so what we're saying is that you won that argument.
Yeah? I won most arguments.
We'll get that noted for the record.
Yes, please, for the permanent record.
Yes.
So he wasn't blood clot. He really just needed a massage.
Don't we all?
Don't we all? But I'm glad it was resolved. The doctors said when we sat down together, they delivered us the news, and I was in these different cancer groups. I was doing my research, and I said, the medication that is going to work is venetoclax. If I got the name right, I may have forgotten the name by now. This is the
it's like me trying to pronounce your surname.
Yes, exactly. It's very complicated. And this doctor said, oh, we don't know. I said, no, you need to give him this drug. This drug is going to work. And by then I had a copy of the protocol, cancer treatment protocol. Which,
of course you did.
Of course I did. I had a friend in the US. Laminated. And a friend in the US, I said, she worked with cancer research. I didn't know. Eventually I opened up to few people. And she said, Erica, I know the lead cancer research. And I said, okay, ask about this drug. This is the type of cancer he's got. This is the mutations. And I'll cut the story short a bit. They agreed to give the drug and they had to move him to London.
And where do you live?
I live near Brighton. So he was in Brighton. He said, look, this drug is not available here. It is available to Julian at King's College in London, which meant more traveling. Because don't forget, in the background, I'm still picking up the kids from school.
I was going to say, the world still turns, doesn't it? The play dates, the clubs, the school, the assemblies, it still keeps going.
Everything. And, my family, they were looking after the house, they're cooking, they're cleaning, but anything to do with facing the world, that was me because of the language barrier.
And also, you don't want to miss out on these key moments in your children's life. It's that feeling of being pulled in two directions because you want to be there for Julian, but you have to work as well in all of this, and then you have to be there, all these things for your children, and this feeling of just being. You need three of you, right? It's not enough that you need two of you. You need three of you because there's just so much more to do than usual.
Well, yeah. To be honest, even before he became ill, I always felt that we're so stretched as a couple, looking after kids without family support. But everything increased tenfold, and literally finishing work, driving to London. By then, COVID was full blown, right?
Yes.
And they stopped me seeing Julian, which had a massive sort of, it affected him mentally.
Of course it did.
The kids out of question. We're now in COVID. My mother-in-law is here, and as much as I love him to bits, she started driving me mad. And I'm like, how I'm going to get rid of her. This was about April time. And they started giving him this drug. Lo and behold, it worked. Like
the
I
drug
said,
that you recommended.
Worked. Yes.
How interesting.
Right, it worked. And this is what I'll say this if it's helpful to anybody out there. Just arm yourself with information. Don't bury your head in the sand, because if I allowed the doctors to do the way they wanted, I wouldn't even have had the 11 months that we had on the period he was ill. But
there's something to be said, isn't there, for arming yourself with the information. And John genuinely did used to carry a laminated card when he took Sarah to hospital because she got sepsis quite a lot, and they would always try and re-diagnose. And being forearmed and also being loud, you have to shout and you have to make yourself heard in this situation. And many people can't. They can't access this, or they just don't know how. So I think you're right. You're so right. And actually getting the information, getting it into language you can understand, even if it means talking to somebody else and knowing what's going on is so important. And so many of you have had to become medical experts. It's just other things people don't think about.
No, because sometimes some people find it's easy to bury your head in the sand. I knew from the off that I was a widow in the making. I'm not
That's
good
so
in.
sad to hear you say that. It really is sad.
It is sad, but I found what was saddest is I'm telling people, Julian's not going to make it. I was telling his brother, he's not going to make it. Please come, please visit.
Mm.
Be with him now that he's alive. And people say, oh no, he's so young, he'll fight it. And I knew he had 10% chance and
10%.
10%
Wow.
from the off. And people want to dispute these facts. And I thought, you're not helping me to process. I'd rather know what it will happen. Embrace
I can
myself.
relate to that to a certain extent when Ben, because he was missing, and people saying to me, oh, don't give up hope, don't give up hope. And I'm thinking, it's March, it's freezing, and it's the channel, and he's been missing for 24 hours. Like, what do you think he's done? Swum the channel? He's not there. And it's that kind of, I can see what people are doing. They're trying to rally you and keep your spirits up, but actually false hope is very dangerous.
It is dangerous. There's a lot to be said about false positivity or this where people, they want you to find against the odds. And was more helpful to me to sit down with Julian. And I had to sit down after the second lot of chemo didn't work. I said, look, I'm sorry. I love you, but I have to tell you, we need to start thinking about the worst. I said, here's a book. So I brought a little black booklet. I said, that's the black book of doom. You're going to write every single password you have, how much money you have in every account. And it's awful that I had to do this. I felt absolutely
but wonderful
awful.
that you had the foresight to do it.
Yeah.
Because
it helps, right?
Well, do you know what? I mean, I had no passwords, no bank accounts, and then everything was frozen because he was missing. And John and I have had this conversation, and we've got it's a QR code thing that you can do where you scan it and it lets you in. He's the tech guy, right? But and we've setting these up because I never want to be in that position again, and I would never want him to be in the position again because I mean, we know each other's phone passwords, but everything has a password now.
Everything. I mean, I can't even remember my password. And
oh God, no!
I can't even begin to imagine for you where it's so sudden. And it's like, do I have to do what? I didn't think of any of these things.
And it's one of the things that we do kind of preach here is if you are in a romantic relationship, one of you is going to be widowed. That's how things work. That's unless you die together, which
is a tragedy.
A tragedy and very unusual. So you have to prepare for it. You have to have these very awkward and difficult conversations. You have to, because especially when there's children involved, especially because, where John and I are a blended family, we have to put very watertight provisions in for who will look after the kids and things. But sorry, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but I like the Black Book of Doom.
Yeah, exactly. So if anybody listening, please, if you're not in that situation, don't be caught by surprise. It's hard now. It'll be much harder later. If you don't know where to start, you don't know the bank accounts. And he wrote, kudos to him. He sat there. And my heart was breaking for him because he was just there, just writing all the passwords. And, I wish I didn't have to be the person that had to say that. But he sorted everything out. He called his mom. He said, look, this is the investments I have in France. He made his wishes clear, said, you are to transfer this to Erica. And a bit fast forward, I didn't see him for a few weeks because he was going through this treatment. The treatment destroys his bone marrow, means he has no immunity. I'm avoiding supermarkets, anything like the plague, because you had the COVID. Sometimes you were in lockdown, then you weren't in lockdown. I can't even remember, to be honest.
No, it was so confusing. And also, when you're the sole provider and carer, you can't get ill.
No.
This is the other thing. And actually, you talked in your application a little bit about this fear of being ill, which we will touch on. But
yeah, sure.
The idea that there's this kind of killer disease out there, and you can't see your husband because he's in
isolation.
Hospital.
Yeah.
But if you get sick, what happens? And you must have been thinking you've got his mother. It's so much for you. I'm all like, it's just too much. It's too much for you.
It was a lot, and I thought it got to a point I felt I needed my mom. Even though I was 41 at the time, I called my mom. I said, I need you. Please come. and I almost didn't let her fly because Brazil, it was tight restrictions. But a friend sent a personal letter to the CEO of the company, this airline. As soon as he read our situation, he allowed her to fly because there was certain things, if you saw life and death situations, they could. And
there's some glimmers, isn't there, of humanity in there, and you get the little. Some people are terrible in this situation, but just the little bits of kindness and humanity. They're little sprinkles of stardust in that horrible time, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. And, absolutely. I remember the nurses sometimes, they had to take his stats and they would ask Luca, oh, do you want to press this button? Do you want to do this? And as awful as it sounds, he loved doing that. And
Holly, when she used to go and see her mum, John talks, they had her sort of answering the phones, and I think they put a little gown on her and stuff. And I think it makes it so much less scary for the child.
Yeah, just humanized the experience a little bit. And they tried that because my daughter, she used to literally run down the corridor. She saw her dad. I don't think she recognized him. And then the nurses had to chase her because she was terrified.
Oh, poor baby. I'm sorry. I thought you meant she was running with excitement, but she ran away.
No, running.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm smiling at you, thinking, oh, that's so sweet. She ran to her dad. You must have been thinking I was a psychopath. I do apologise.
No, that's
she ran away. I do. Oh, gosh,
ran away.
That must have been horrible for all of you, but especially for Julian.
Especially for Julian, I started bringing bags of sweets and lollipops to try to associate somehow. Well, fatten him as well. I mean, he lost. He was so lame and. Because he was so sick all the time. And the kids, they associated, oh, dad is always sick, always vomiting. The few times he managed to come home because he was impatient all the time. I remember him walking through the door, the kids holding his hand up the stairs because he couldn't quite make it. But yeah, it's all very trying. And Julian, he took the medication, responded to the medication. They found donors he needed a transplant. He needed bone marrow transplant, which it's similar to a blood transfusion, but not a little bit more complex. But
it's quite hard to find a match sometimes, isn't it?
Extremely hard. His brother wasn't a match.
His brother, goodness.
No, he wasn't a good match. And he was Caucasian man, which you'd think he had every chance to find loads of donors. He found 3. And the most promising one was a lady from the US. He had the cells that flown over by plane. And he had his transplant, which is, takes a period of hours. And is very risky. Is extremely risky. He became very ill with lots of things after the transplant. And by then I was offered another job. I was looking for another job during pandemic. I found the job, and funny enough, my kids crashed on my interview. And even then, I still got the job.
Well, I think that's a good sign, isn't it?
It's a good sign, and it was a much better job, so something to look forward to. But on the first day I started my job, the hospital called me and said his liver is failing and we're going to have to take him to intensive care. And and they have a language, the doctors, and you think this is really bad. She said this is very serious because his other organs could start failing. And I literally had my new boss there in front of her. I said, oh, this is everything okay? I said, yes. I said, but
of course, yeah, fine.
Yeah, of course, yeah. My husband is dying, but other than that, everything's okay.
Oh, good.
And I said, I just need to keep my phone in case I have another phone call. And yeah, luckily I got home after that day and I called the hospital.
So did you manage to do the full day at work?
I did.
Oh my God, you're a machine.
Rosie, I don't even know. You just
go autopilot.
I go into, I don't know, there's something else that takes over. I thought the main thing was I need to provide for my kids. once
I'm hearing this all the way through this interview, Erica, all the way through this kind of, you are putting yourself to one side to care for Julian and the kids and to make sure that you can provide for them. And this maternal need to stand and protect them from the force of the blow, it's making the hair stand up all over my arms and things, because I know that feeling. I know that desire to just do whatever it takes to get your children through this horrible experience. But God, you took on so much. And sorry, I just to digress a little bit, but Anthony Parks, he spoke about his husband took his own life and he was away for work and he knew what had happened. He knew he couldn't reach him, but he did the day's work. He drove back, and this kind of peculiar out of body experience that you have when something horrible is happening. It's very peculiar, isn't it?
Yeah. And I heard that podcast and I can relate to a lot of it, but it did feel strange. So I did just what he did. But I almost felt like telling him, go home and have a cup of tea, when I didn't do that.
We're very good at giving advice, aren't we?
Yeah, well, exactly. And I thought that this is mad, but this is also me. I called the hospital and I called the intensive care unit. I said, no, he's not here. I said, where the hell is my husband then? So I started ringing around. Eventually, I found somebody that knew. I said, no, he didn't come to intensive care. His liver, they start giving this new medication. His liver is responding, is improving, which was such a massive relief. But anyway, it delayed, because he had that problem, it delayed him coming back home to us by 3 weeks. And eventually he did come home, extremely weak, didn't look like himself at all. He's 6 foot tall and I'm 5 foot nothing. And he weighted the same as me.
My goodness.
And, I'm cooking everything. So, what do you want to eat? My mom was here. My mom, like every day, she didn't leave his side at all. She said, oh, Erica, he should come. He wants to go to the supermarket. He looks a bit happier today. I'm going to walk to the supermarket with him. Everything with masks. And we're still worried about COVID and germs. And I'm trying to make my grubby kids wash their hands. Because they don't know the normality of not being clean and being around that day.
No.
And
actually, you don't want them to know either. I find the whole hand washing of COVID has sort of left my youngest particularly with this kind of fanatical hand. Well, not to the point of it being a problem, but, she absolutely must wash her hands, And I think, I spent ages trying to beat the boys not literally, into washing their hands. And of course, all it took was a pandemic, and now I can't stop them.
Oh, that's
but only one of them.
To be honest, sounds wonderful, because my kid's still grubby.
One out of four, and only the hands.
Yeah, no, they still. I mean, Lottie not as much, but Luca, he's a grubby boy.
They're gross,
he likes to be gross. And he came. I think it was August 2020. It's funny because the details sort of become a bit blurry.
They do.
And then was his birthday was 12th of October. I said to my mom, I'm gonna go. He looked a lot better that weekend. A few days before, I booked a very expensive hotel in Surrey, and I think I spent half of my salary on that weekend.
Which hotel, out of curiosity?
Oh, I need to check. I need to.
No, don't worry if you don't know. I'm only being nosy.
I don't remember now. Yeah, it was a lovely hotel, and he saw Peter Crouch, the footballer, and he is not starstruck at all, but he was totally starstruck. We had a great time, and he managed to eat without being sick, which was a plus. He was like himself, and totally worth it. For the joy, of seeing him being himself again, and us being a couple that we haven't been for, all these months. And a week later, I decided to go kayaking, have some time to myself. I spoke to Julian. I said to my mom, who was here all this time, I said, I need some time, to decompress. And I was kayaking. I didn't have my phone on me. When I finished kayaking, I picked my phone. There were several calls from my mom.
Oh, that's not a very good sign.
That is not good. I said, Mom, I'm coming. She said, look, Erica, he's not great. And I came back home I said, look, do you want me to take you to the hospital? And he was reluctant because he knew the minute he's admitted he's not going to see us or he's not going to see the kids. That night I called the ambulance and he never came back home. He died the day after Luca turned 7.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And poor little Luca as well.
And, and obviously through Erica's fashion, Luca's birthday was on the 31st. I did a little party for 3 of his friends. I took him out. I had my phone with me all the time. And nobody knew that my husband was dying. Literally, I thought I want to give him this bit of normality, his last birthday. And I remember saying to Julian, I said, because by then he started, when they are in the process of dying, I don't know, you probably know from the podcast, sometimes they are with it, sometimes they're very unconscious or they don't recognize family and friends. Yeah. And I said, your son's birthday is tomorrow. I said, please don't die. Don't let him have that on him that he's going to have the birthday the same day that his dad died. And he died the following day.
Wow, that was a nice birthday gift, right?
I think it was an amazing gift because obviously it wasn't my place to ask him that, but I had a close friend and we worried about the burden that would have been. She's like, oh, do you think you can even ask the doctors to fake the death certificate if he dies on the day? I said, well, I don't know. I
would have. I'd have just changed it, I think.
Oh, I would. I probably would have lied.
Or changed Luca's birthday. He'd have forgotten soon.
Yeah, change his birthday or change something. But it's Halloween, it's such a...
his birthday's Halloween, yes.
It's Halloween,
yeah, that's a good birthday.
It's Halloween, and then that's it. Then fast forward, I'm a solo parent.
Well, hang on. I'm going to just drag you back in, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
sorry, you don't get to weigh that lightly, Erica.
No.
So, if you, and obviously only if you're comfortable doing so, are you able to tell us a little bit about the end? Were you there? Were you able to be with him?
I was there. It was the worst day of my life, obviously, because when I walked in, and he was there, but he wasn't there. He didn't know I was there, even though the nurses prepared us. He became quite distraught, and his breathing. There was a time that he was breathing very heavily, and I thought, well, I didn't expect that. I said, this is not peaceful. And it didn't even occur to me to go and see one of the nurses. And mind you, by then, the only family I had was my mom, who was at home, my mother-in-law, who flew like last minute. I said, please come, he's dying. And the nurse walked in, oh, he's in distress. And then he gave some more drugs, and then he was in a better state. But I went through hours of watching this man struggling to breathe. It was almost like he was drowning.
Oh, gosh.
And, with them holding his hand and just saying, look, it's okay to let go. It's okay. And everything is gonna be okay, to give them that release. Because sometimes I think they try to cling on. And don't forget, he was only 40. So then the doctors want some of his vital organs are still quite strong. So his body may fight for it.
This is what we hear in these stories, is actually the younger and fitter and healthier you are, often it's undetected because you're so fit and well. And also, the other organs take longer. I mean, it's just barbaric, isn't it?
It was barbaric. I mean, I thought if they walked in sooner, the experience would have been less traumatic, but he couldn't close his eyes anymore. So he was just staring. And then he had this fever, and his body all of a sudden was shivering. His body was fighting with every fiber that he had of energy left. And it was so traumatic. I don't think I can talk much more about it. But
no, that's fine. I really appreciate you sharing that, though, because that was really, really tough. And I can see on your face how tough that was. You can probably see on my face that I can feel some of your pain over here.
It was very painful. It drained all my energy. I came home. I said to Mama, I'm going to bed. And I just slept 4 hours. Yeah, it's horrible. And then you have the job to tell your kids, it took me 2 days to gather the courage to tell Luca. And it was only because the head teacher, who lost his dad at a young age, said, look, Luca didn't say anything. I said, you better tell him in a very gentle way, because I don't want Luca to hear from his classmates that that his dad passed away. So I had to sit him down, and my mother said, "You're gonna do that?" I said, "Well, who is gonna do it?
Who else? And this is the thing. Who else? Right? The buck stops with us now. That's it. It's who else?
Exactly. I think I even challenged her a little bit. I said, "Well, do you want to do it?" I'm his mother. I'd rather he hears from me. And his face, I love my daddy. I said, I want my daddy back. And it's like, God, he's gone, and then I told Lottie was like, oh, what do you mean his legs don't work or he can't breathe? And then I said, no, he's gone. Like, oh, when he's coming back? And for her, it took a process of months, because she couldn't understand. She was too young.
She was 3, was she?
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, she was 3. And then a whole year in the hospital. And he was just like, oh, does that mean he can't walk? And that upset Luca. And because obviously he knew it was a permanent thing. And I was always very honest. Nobody's in heaven. Apologies for people that have the belief. I'm not religious. And we are on full lockdown. I prepared all the funeral by myself. I couldn't ask family for help because nobody could obviously speak English. I chose the flowers. So my mother-in-law, you happy with this? Yes. I wrote everything myself. I put the pictures, and carried on working. I think I took 2 weeks off.
I was going to just ask you if you had some time off. I've been doing a little bit of work with some companies about helping people back to work. And one of the ideas we've come up with, because you said you didn't want to talk about it, is I did maybe wearing like a coloured wristband, like don't talk to me about the grief or something like that. But hearing you talk about the idea that you felt that all it would take is like one well-meaning person and you would the whole house of cards would fall down.
Yeah. That's it. That's exactly how I felt. I felt a bit like Dory from, Finding Nemo, just keep swimming. From experience, sometimes it is just that. You either you drown or you just keep swimming. And I thought, if I keep putting one foot in front of the other, eventually I'll get there. I kicked the whole family out of my house a week after the funeral. I said, you know what? If the lockdown gets any more severe, it means I'm stuck with you guys. I know, thank you. I mean,
I love you, but
I love you. And my mother-in-law and my mom, they're lovely and they get on so well, even though they don't speak English. One day I came, they were playing cards together.
That's lovely.
Oh, they borrow each other's reading glasses, and
my mum and Ben's mum post each other books.
Yeah, exactly. They have a loving relationship, loving, respectful relationship, But I thought I was juggling too many of other people's feelings that were not my own. And I thought, okay, we are free now. Let's be the free. Because I thought if I postpone it, if I say, no, please stay with me for another so many months, I'll get used to having those crutches. And eventually I need to be the solo parent and be doing everything solo. So I'd rather just feel the pain now.
It's very familiar because my parents were amazing as well. And funny, they were on holiday in Cuba when it all happened, and they got back so quickly, and they just left their life and came to live in my house with me. And they lived with me for 3 months, and probably similar to you, 2 strong female characters in the house.
Yeah.
So they moved out, but they stayed living locally. So they were local to me for about a year, and then they moved home. And I do remember that going, okay, well, there's 4 now. This is us. There's 4 of us now. So we got to manage, and and I'm like you, I don't have a huge amount of family. My parents, they only live an hour away, but so that kind of, I'm quite reluctant to ask for help because it's I actually noticed sorry, I've got off on one of my tangents, but I read one of your blogs, which is about asking for, and one of the things you say is about asking for help. It's very difficult. And I get that because you just kind of go, well, this is it now, the buck stops here. So I have to do this. I was fortunate enough not to be working full time, but goodness me, that sounds such hard work and still trying to navigate the children's emotions.
Yeah.
And so
it is, yeah. And I have a side business as well, so I manage.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
But I think, but this obviously, I want to put this out there because I don't want people to feel bad for sometimes just thinking that it's not okay to hide under the duvet and not come out. It is a coping mechanism, being busy, and I have counseling, and I notice periods of high stress. You see me like a lunatic all of a sudden, I don't know, doing the whole garden or just cleaning the whole house. I'm not saying it works for me, but please, any person just listening, don't feel it's not okay to just take the day and just cry your eyes out. I have done it in very few occasions. Normally catches me by surprise. So where this is coming from. But
Erica, that is incredible.
It's there, Sorry, I just cut you there, Rosie.
No, I did it to you. Don't worry. This is a slight problem with time delay and not making great eye contact myself. It is a coping mechanism. You're absolutely right. And it's one that people don't tend to think of as a coping mechanism. I class it in many ways up there with drinking, using, eating, whatever you do, because I'm listening to you and you see me smiling because, I'm manic with it sometimes, absolutely manic. And it's an avoidance. I know what it is. I've dealt with many of my issues, but the busyness it is still an issue for me because I try too hard to be everything to everybody. And I think it comes from a place of control and fear and, terrified of being on my own. And, I know that it comes from a place of trauma, but it is definitely a coping mechanism. And you're so kind to reassure people who haven't got businesses and side businesses and children and are struggling to cope, that it isn't a sign that you're doing better and they're doing worse. It's simply whatever coping strategy you're using to get you through the hardest thing in your life.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And have counseling if you need. I do.
I'm saying I do, yeah.
Yeah, she's I am a coper. It is true. But at the same time, I find that I eventually need to find some balance where I don't put everybody else ahead of me, and I'm the bottom of the pile. And sometimes you just need to face what it is, that it is painful, and you need to cry and you need to take time out. I'm quite aware as well that I didn't want to be a victim. And I find it very hard sometimes when people say, oh, you're doing so great. And I'm like, well, what choice do I have? And, I still have moments of jealousy when I have other moms who have husbands and they go like, oh, I had such a stressful week. So-and-so was away for work, golfing. And sometimes I'm like, oh, just get off your high horse. I have it so easy. At the same time, I go like, well, why would they know what it's like? Why would I want them to know what it's like?
And it was hard when Ben used to go away. He used to work abroad, and I probably referred to myself as a cricket widow or something at some point in my life, because you say these things with absolutely no thought of how it could impact somebody else, because why would you? And I think that's a really interesting point. And, it's very easy when you're in this place to get quite angry for people not understanding or saying things that you find really triggering. But actually, unless you have been through something like this, you have no clue. And, lucky them. And even now I put my foot in it on a regular basis, even knowing things I shouldn't say, we still do it.
We still do it. I think that the secret there is not to become angry with the word and bitter, and just try to find the joy where you can. I think I told you when I wrote to you, it's a massive juggle, and there's so many activities that I wanted to do. I have a friend that runs. I took up running recently to try to keep on top of my mental health and be a bit healthier. I said like, oh, why don't you join a running club? I'm like, no. I can't. I said, what I'm going to do with the kids, put them in a box. I miss things like girls' night out.
It's the spontaneity, isn't it? It's just being able to say, and actually, like you, I remember paying for a childmind to watch my youngest so I could go to the gym on a Friday morning, because I just thought, I know one gym session is not going to change my body, but it might help with my head, right?
Yeah.
And also, like you, I took up running. I didn't go very far, and I certainly didn't go very fast, but I did, and it helped in a way that nothing else did, because it's that, well, I used to actually say, if my body hurts, my heart doesn't.
Yeah. It's all, if you feel with certain things that bring joy, maybe the sadness will be less. And there is another thing that I remember vividly. Probably you know Bob Geldof, and he lost his daughter Peaches. It's such a tragic manner, and that was before Julian was unwell, obviously, and all that happened. And he married. She died, and then all of a sudden, he's marrying his girlfriend. At the time, I thought, how crazy is that? That this guy has the funeral, now he's having the wedding. I didn't understand. And he said something that years later made a lot of sense. He said, there was so much darkness that we needed to let the light in. And now it makes absolutely sense. Because, we go on holidays. Me and the kids, we've been to Turkey, we've been to Spain, we've been to Brazil, we've been to France several times. We're flying out to France again for the school holidays, which is another. Why do they have so many holidays?
My kids are on an insert day today. It's Friday, isn't it? It's Friday today. The kids are on two of my kids are on an insert day. They break up next week. Why do they need an insert day today?
Right, and then a strike day. So it's a strike day next week. We've got 2 days of strike. I sat down with my kids and said, well, mommy needs to go to work, and you two are going to come with me. I spoke to my colleague. I said, look, it's a simple place we need to visit. There's not anything that could be dangerous to the kids. And you two are going to have a clipboard each. I'll tell you what to look out for. I said, yeah, that's my reality, right? And they need to appreciate mommy needs to work for a living.
And I think also important for the kids to see this, because, my kids, I was trying to run Ben's business badly, but, taking calls because the wood was cut to the wrong dimension. I don't know anything about this. And I used to just sit in the car and cry because I didn't know how to fix this problem. That was, at the time, my only sort of financial support, because this business gave me all the money I had. And you just feel so completely helpless, and that the entire weight of responsibility is on you. But I do think that for the children to see you pull yourself back out again, and to see that, yes, there will be days when you are sobbing under the duvet and you can't move, because that's important. They see that too.
Yeah.
But to see us as women climb back out of this hole ourselves, I think it's really empowering.
I think so. And of course, going back to what you said, to see you fighting for it, but to see you crying, you need to give them the language to express themselves. Because if all the language that is in the house, let's be positive, 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 when is it a time that you can say, actually, I'm not good. I don't feel great. And I had to have counselors tell me that
Same.
You don't need to hide to cry. Because I used to, my car used to be my crying spot. Driving to work, cry my eyes out.
Home from the school run.
Dry. And the school run was horrible. I spoke to the head teacher. I said, I hate the pitying looks. Can I please drop them in the office so I don't have to see any of the other parents? And it went on for months and months until I felt strong enough to face the reality, because it cut to my heart to see the dads. That was horrible.
Yeah. And I remember, because, Ben and I were, we were just so happy. We were aware that we were lucky. We loved each other. We had lovely kids.
The same.
And to go from being this kind of family that everyone's like, lucky don't get anything, and to just being, oh, poor her, and to go from this lovely, happy life to being this pitied victim.
Yeah.
It's such a huge transition, especially if you are quite a strong female character, which I can see very much that you are. And then I guess I kind of leaned into the victim thing a bit, perhaps, because I just felt so helpless. And then I just decided enough was enough, victim or warrior, right? We're warriors.
Exactly. I hated with vengeance. In hindsight, the lockdown was beneficial to me because I didn't have to interact with the world. I could just be us. And I didn't have to feel jealous that people having barbecues and interacting with their families, which I know sounds horrible, but the whole...
I left Facebook for a bit for the same reason. I found it so painful.
Same. I followed a lot of people. because I couldn't face it. Oh, me and so celebrating 5 years, and I'm like, oh, I'll never have that again, and it's terrible. Not just that, facing all these challenges, the cost of living crisis, and then
schools, because your youngest must have started school in that time, and the same as mine, and that's a huge thing.
Yeah, huge thing. He managed to take her for the first day. He was just well enough, and took her, and now she's moving to secondary school, and she's such a sharp, bright little girl. She wrote a story that we turned into a book. I'm still in the process
That's
of
lovely.
of illustrating.
I would like to see that actually. If you would show me that when it's ready, I'd like to see that.
I'm happy to send you a copy. I was talking to Luke about something, and he said, I said, look, it's the three of us. And he said, yeah, Mom, but don't underestimate us. I said, well, that's the spirit. That's the spirit.
I love that. That's wonderful. Don't underestimate us. I think that's wonderful.
No. And, I think that the biggest legacy is raising kids solo. Is absolutely tough. And I'll take my hats off to anybody that does it.
I always feel a bit disingenuous because I obviously have the lovely John now to co-parent with me.
You do,
but I still think our ratio outweighs it. Like, we're still 2 parents to 4 kids. I think that's still ridiculous.
Oh, no, it's a lot of work. I'm lucky enough. I do have somebody in my life now.
Well, this was going to be my question. I do like to ask people if they have met somebody, because as you talked then about Bob Geldof and the idea that you want to grab onto any joy and moments of beauty and happiness. And I feel that very, very much that way about new relationships. And I know that it's not for everybody. And I know that if you'd asked me at 6 months or a year into my grief whether I would be remarried, I would have told you to fuck off probably. And yet here I am. But I do think that you are open to, we talk about this quite a lot, to happiness again, because you want some joy. You don't want to you don't want to live in the sorrow. And we know that it comes with you, but you're allowed to be happy too, right?
You are allowed. And my mother-in-law, who I have a great relationship with, and she knows about, that in a relationship. And she asked me the other day, so how's things between you, and it's your friend.
Yeah.
I said, well, yeah, it's good. I said, don't tell you because I don't want to upset you. She said, no, you don't upset me because you need balance. If it gives you balance, then that's all I care, And
this sounds like my mother-in-law. She's really supportive too.
Oh, I'm happy for you.
She's lovely.
She's lovely. And I'm like, you're still family. I told her several times, because I know sometimes in-laws, they fall out. I said, look, I want to make clear, it changes nothing. You're still family. Still visit each other. I call once a week. Yeah, and I'm glad I love her because my daughter's spitting image of my mother-in-law.
Is she?
Copy. She looks very French. Nothing like me.
No, well, mine are all kind of a mix, but yeah, there's definitely their dad there, and we said this. It kind of, God, it really takes you aback sometimes. Especially as my eldest, he gave me a hug. It might even have been yesterday. And I even said to him, poor kid, I think it was at breakfast, and I dropped the emotional bomb, but I said, oh, Monty, that actually feels like a hug from your dad. And he just looked at me a bit like, oh, but weird. I think he took it in good spirits.
Yes.
Oh, well, Erica, it has been just incredible to talk to you. And I'm really glad that you are kind of rebuilding this life for you and the children, and for you. We talk a lot about the children, but I think it's so important that you have a life that is for you. And I said to you earlier, the overwhelming theme in this conversation has just been the sacrifices and just the balls, for want of a better word, that you have, and the way you have fought for everything, both for Julian and for your children, and to give them a good, happy life. And look what you're doing with them. You've taken them away on holidays. And I think all of our guests are amazing. And I genuinely think you're amazing. And the common theme that runs through all of our guests is this. I'm not going to be a victim. I want to survive this, and I want to create a good life. And it's what gives, I think, people hope when they are at the beginning of this journey.
Yeah. You need hope. I remember clinging on to hope. But you need to fight for your life. And everybody here, I think yourself included, if you I need to live the life for the both of us, because he didn't get a chance.
Yeah.
And he said something so beautiful to my mother-in-law before he passed. She told me recently, he said, Mom, Erica's got it. She's got it. She will get over this. And I thought it was such a faith that he had in my ability.
That's beautiful.
It means a lot. Yeah.
I don't know as Ben would have said the same. He'd probably just be, no, I think he would know that I would have dealt with it. It's a cliche again, but I was not renowned for you wouldn't necessarily come to me in a crisis prior to this. I was a bit of a, party animal and, a bit flaky, but I now realise that we all have this kind of core of steel in us. I wish I didn't have to find it, if I'm honest with you, but I'm now using it to do better things. So found the core of steel, sadly not the abs, but, we'll now try and do some good with what we've learned. And you write a blog, don't you? So I'm going to put a link to the blog because I read some of your what do you call blog posts? That's the word. Yeah. I read a couple of your blog posts before we came on air, and you write very beautifully. So I would recommend to our listeners that they have a read as well. And yeah, just a big, massive thank you for believing in what we're doing, for having the courage to come on and talk about it and share your story, because we know that the power is in sharing and talking.
Yeah. It just make people aware that, we are a minority, but it can happen.
We do, and we walk among you. There's more of us than you think.
So more kindness.
Wids in the wild. I'm trying to get this hashtag going.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And I will, and we will definitely stay in touch. Take care of yourself. And for everybody else, we will be talking about Erica's episode on Friday. So anything you want to contribute or ask, I can certainly pass it to Erica. But for now, you guys take care of yourselves as well.